G'day punters and welcome back to another episode of AFL Unpopular Opinions. I'm your host Ryan Cook, and joining me with a new hat and a button-up shirt this week, it's Jack Lindley.
Very visual introduction for those pod listeners out there.
Looking good, mate. Tommy Rockcliffe is here. He's blown up Twitter overnight.
Yeah, I will get to that. I'm big on that, I reckon. But yeah, certainly fired him up again. Not politics this time, AFL footy this time. So.
Yeah, king of engagement. And from across the ditch this week on his mid-season break, it's Alistair Lynch.
Good afternoon, morning, or whatever it is over there. Yeah, great to be on. Yeah, sorry I couldn't join you last week. You hang shit on me last week for not fronting up on time, so I thought I'd just bugger off to New Zealand.
Yeah. Bugger off, and so I'm surprised you're not in Tazzy trying to save the team, or are you starting a New Zealand team?
No, we're right, absolutely. No problems whatsoever. There's a couple of political issues down there, no worries. Your Uncle Jeremy Rockcliffe's under the pump. And, yeah, so, well, they haven't decided yet, but most likely they'll go to a July election. So, yeah, there's a lot of frustrated and very interested Tasmanians out there that'll be going to the polls again.
So what's it mean for the Tassie team though, Lynchy? Is it in trouble now? I know that both sides genuinely support the team and want it to survive, but there's obviously a money issue. That's why Jeremy Rockcliffe's been thrown out, isn't it? They reckon he can't manage a budget. Obviously the stadium's going to cost a lot of money, and it is part of the licence agreement, is it not?
Yeah, so the no confidence motion that was put through Parliament last week had nothing to do with the stadium. There was more about the Bass Strait ferries. There's been blowouts there, and the docks in Devonport. So there's been a number of other things. Actually, the Greens tried to get the stadium as part of this no confidence motion, but that was knocked back by the Labor Party that proposed it. So it's not a stadium issue. So the minority Liberal government now will have to go to the polls. So the reality is, whether it's a Liberal minority government or a Labor minority government, it still stays the same. The issues will be that it goes through Parliament and it'll be tested at the upper house. And, yeah, hopefully we've got the votes. So realistically, it's a delay, but there's no change to the process going forward.
So push on from your end.
Well, it has to be, actually. And, yeah, the timeframes that are set out by the AFL in their contract with the government, we should be able to meet those. Now, if we don't, that becomes an issue. But with the election even coming up and the delay of a couple of months, that shouldn't mean that we miss the timeframes that have been put in place in the contract. So, yeah, it's just keep going ahead. There's lots of discussions going on. The High Performance Centre down at Kingston. There's the list build rules that are only a matter of weeks away from being signed off. So there's no change, albeit frustrating because it does slow things up.
They can certainly push on. You look at the Gold Coast when they came in, and even the Giants as well. The Gold Coast had no training facility down there. They had bloody, what are they called? Cargo containers to train out of. And they didn't even have the stadium for they played at the Gabba for the first half of the year when they came in because of the Com Games or whatnot down there. There was something on. So that's, hopefully Tazzy get in, Lynchy, and away we go.
But Rocky, there is a different groups, I suppose, that are saying, well, just come in, don't worry about the stadium, or just get started. Now, I get that, and it has been a long, frustrating build over the last, realistically, 35 years to try to get a team into the competition. But we need to come in, as you raised with the Gold Coast. They got started, they didn't have the right training facilities for about 8 years. And then obviously the stadium upgrade with the Commonwealth Games was really important. But I think we need to do that ASAP because the clubs, the AFL, don't want to keep supporting the Tasmanian team because they can't stand on their own 2 feet. I think every club and every supporter doesn't want to drain on their club. So we've got to come in with the right training facilities so we can attract and retain and train talent, and the right stadium so we can actually support a professional footy club. Otherwise, we'll just be asking clubs for big checks to stay alive, and no one wants that, especially Tasmanians.
Yeah, look, you sound pretty positive still, Lynchy, so that's the main thing. Are you sick of answering these questions yet?
Oh no, it's well until we actually get this, because we've only got a provisional license. We're going to continue to get these questions until we get the full license and we've got the green light for the stadium and starting in 28. So it is frustrating, but everyone, we got 15 full-time staff now that are doing a great job, and I think we have a responsibility to not only them, to Tasmanians, but the 210,000 foundation members that have. And I get that not all of those are going to be passionate Tasmanian supporters, but they're passionate supporters of Tasmanian football. And so I think we have a responsibility just to keep ploughing on, but do it correctly and make sure that we got the stadium right, and so that we can compete on and off the field.
We're going to talk about expansion a little bit later. Let's talk about some real footy that happened over the weekend, because the last few weeks we sat here and
hang on, Ryan.
Go.
What about, on your very good intro of Rocky, what, did you blow up Twitter?
He has.
What's happened?
Yeah.
And I'm not a big social media operator, so this is all new to me. So what?
Well, we'll get to it. I just said, as what I've said numerous times to you and on this podcast, and watching the games over the weekend and continually over the last couple of years, I think that the AFL's expanded too big. So I'm in agreement that Tasmania should come in. I'm not against Tasmania coming in, but I think we need to reduce the teams. They're never going to do it. I accept that they're never going to do it, but the talent pool's not there. We've expanded to 18 teams, and you see those bottom teams, they just suffer, and they suffer for so long, and they find it so hard to get back, and people will say, oh, they got their recruiting wrong, their development's wrong, but the talent pool's not there to continue to grow. So we'll go to 19 teams, and then we'll go to 20 teams, and we're going to have the same issues. It's the same as the AFLW. The AFLW would be a really good competition with 8 teams because the talent would be a lot higher, the talent pool's reduced, and I think the AFL system would be much better as a 16-team competition. So realistically, if you went to a 16-team competition, you're effectively taking off the bottom 5 or 6 players from every list, which I don't think anyone would be against. And I think that we've diluted the competition so much that the standards and quality of the games now isn't there. And the prime example, and I know that it was out of Bunbury yesterday, but that was a horrific game to watch.
Oh, horrific is an understatement.
West Coast and North Melbourne, like they're down the bottom, and they are developing. And I understand that you've got top teams and bottom teams, and you're always going to have that. And even when we had 16 teams back in the day, we had bad games. I accept that. But now I think with population growth and where it's at, we'd have a really strong competition with 16 teams in it. We would have a lot better quality of footy, where now that I said, and people took offence to it, I said it used to be a privilege to play AFL footy. It still is a privilege to play AFL footy, but a lot more players are getting games now when they're not ready. It's hard to play AFL footy, and Lynchy can attest to this. It is near impossible to get through, not near impossible, it's hard work to get through an AFL pre-season. Anyone that plays league footy, they've done the hard work to get there. I'm not taking anything away from that. You've done a super pre-season, you've done training in season, you've warranted your form within the reserves competition, whether it be VFL, Sandful, Waffle, whatever the footy is. So you've done the work to get there, but I just think that there is players at the moment and in the past that are certainly playing games when they shouldn't be, that they're not ready for it and they're not up to the standard. And I think we've seen that more and more now, and I think that it used to be a real privilege to pull on an AFL jumper and really earn it, and I'm not taking anything away from anyone that's playing, but I think that we're seeing players running around that aren't up to the level, and it's not just that game. Lynchy was at the Giants and Port Adelaide. I know it was in Canberra. I know it was a cold night, but that was terrible to watch as well.
Yeah.
There's been plenty of games over the weekend. Even
Gold Coast Suns barely showed up in Geelong.
Richmond, Sydney, some of those games. And then even last night, for large chunks of that, Carlton and Essendon was hard to watch as well. It's not... There's players that are running around that are not up to the skill level. Yes, they compete hard and they do everything right, but I think if we reduce the competition, which we're not going to do, I accept that. There's too much money for TV rights and whatnot. 16, for me, is the prime number of AFL teams in the competition.
Well, just lay it on us right now. Who are the 2 that you're getting rid of?
Well, you can't.
May as well get into it.
No, you're not. again, they're not going to do it, but you'd have to talk about merging teams. That's the only way you'd do it. You'd bring them together. Like the Brisbane Lions, Brisbane Bears and Fitzroy came together. I think back in the day there was almost Melbourne and St Kilda almost become one, or there was certainly teams.
Melbourne Hawthorn.
Leave the Hawks out of it.
So there is teams that you would just have to look at and go, maybe we merge. And realistically, it'd be the Melbourne teams.
Yep.
It'd be 2 Melbourne teams that merge. You bring in Tasmania, maybe one merges with Tasmania, and then 2 Melbourne teams.
North Melbourne or Hawthorn could go Tazzy.
Hawthorns.
Maybe a three-way merger.
Yeah.
That could be it.
But you've got so you're losing 100 players from the competition, which are the 5 or 6 on the bottom of each list, which we're not going to lose anything from that. I don't think, in my opinion.
So how'd you go on the socials?
Oh, well, no, there was a lot that agreed, and there was just a lot that jumped over me. Just get rid of Port Adelaide, get rid of Brisbane, and you would never have played if you would have been pouring beers in Benalla, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, and then the people just don't see it for what it is. They're like, you came from a pre-season draft, you weren't in the national draft. I never said anything about the draft system or anything like that. I'm just saying the talent's not there.
I think your point too was that the VFL and the lower leagues are struggling.
They certainly are, and I don't know whether you've been out to local footy or whatnot, Lynchy. I strongly believe the AFL will never ever say this, but I think they want the NFL style of American football, where you've got your college system. So we've got our junior system, and then you've got your NFL, and no one else plays. So when you get to senior footy, no one else plays, because it's in their best interest to have packed stadiums. So if they get rid of all local footy, which they'll never say they want, but they're going to earn more money because they're not pumping money back into grassroots footy. They're pumping it into their elite junior competitions coming through. You've got packed stadiums because no one else is going to local footy on the weekend. They're all going to the MCG, or they're all going to Marvel Stadium, or they're all going to Adelaide Oval. They're going to the Gabba. I think they want that model. And I don't think you go to any local footy now, the quality of, I grew up in country Victoria, the Golden Valley and Ovens and Murray has dropped. They used to be the absolute elite competition, Geelong League as well. And I think even there's certainly been a growth in New South Wales and Queensland, particularly Southeast Queensland. There certainly has in the junior numbers, male, female, growing. But I believe that the AFL want a model where it's just AFL footy and no other senior footy.
I think to your point too, they're trying to market the AFL draft like the NFL draft, which is absolutely massive in the States. Lynchy, where are you at on all of this?
I just think there's a big gap there. You can't replicate the US because we don't have the US college system. So that gap between 18 and 22, where you got the college system, which is arguably a greater profile than the NFL, for example, I think really the state leagues play an important role. I think what will happen is the AFL will eventually have a reserves comp. And the reserves comp will be a development league, basically, so that you prepare kids for senior football. But I think to grow the state leagues, I reckon, is really important. And looking from putting the Tazzy hat on again, unless we've got a vibrant state league, or it's probably in Tassie it's going to be 2 leagues. Unless we've got that, we can't grow the local talent. So we need a good academy going into local senior football and create pathways. So I think that's really important. So that college gap is something that we can't replicate with the US. But I agree with you what you're saying about that talent drain, Rocky. And if you were starting with a clean slate, a national league, an AFL, you wouldn't have now 18, 19, 20 teams, and it would be less in Melbourne. But as you did say, they're not going to change that now. I think we've probably seen the last relocation or merger when it was back with Fitzroy. I think probably what they need to do, as you're saying, the talent pool probably isn't quite there. There might be an idea because over the years there's been lists have been reduced in number. If you were concerned about the talent not being available for another team, so Tassie, and maybe it's something where every club around the league have to take on an extra 2 or 3 players that is supported by the AFL to be developed, and then when the Tasmanian team comes in, you've got to reduce that number so that then there's a talent pool that's been prepared for the next team to come in. Now, that hasn't been floated or anything like that, but just I agree with what you say. The talent pool has been diluted, but that's one way you could probably enhance it in preparation for a 19th team.
I know they do this in the NBA, but when a new franchise comes along, they get to draft players from other teams. So you can lock, say, your top 6 players and they can't be touched, and then the new team coming in can have their pick from, say, one player from each club. Would that be something you would probably be very interested in, Angie?
Yeah, well, and that's what, again, the rules haven't been signed off on, but you'll have access to, and you won't be able to take any more than one player from each club, but you'll be able to access some uncontracted mature age talent at each club. So that'd be one vehicle to make sure you're competitive to start with, have access to the elite under 18 talent or 17-year-old talent. So, yeah, that'll be the combination. You certainly need that access to, if you're going to be competitive. Otherwise, it'd be an insult to the competition, insult to the other teams to think you could draft 18-year-olds and some old rookies and some past players and chuck them in, you're going to be competitive. That's just not going to happen.
Well, you can get a rugby league player in too.
Everyone's done that as well. But
Might have to look at that.
To that point, I don't want to bang on. I just don't think the talent's there to continue to grow to 19 and eventually 20, because we're going to have to go to 20 with the team having a bye every week. The AFL will want 20 teams. So, in my opinion, I don't think we have the talent to do it. The population's grown, yes, but we've got 18 senior teams. We've got competitors in the NRL, where in the NFL they've got 32 teams. It's the premier sporting, the football code over there. They've got a population of 140 million. We've got a population of 26.
Yeah, you can't compare it.
No, that's right.
Rocky, that's also why the Northern Academies are essential. And I get the arguments that not all of these kids that come through the Giants Academy or the Lions Academy have just been introduced to the game. But the more we can grow that pathway, the more we'll take players out of the rugby league talent pool or the rugby union talent pool and drag them to AFL football. So I think that's something we really have to keep going with. And that's why, other AFL clubs wanted to balance things up by having their NGA academies as well. So we want to grow the talent pool. So it's not just looking overseas to the Irish, but it's especially in the northern states where most kids come through and they're thinking league or union. Let's get them to think as their primary sport as AFL, and that's just going to enhance the local competitions, enhance the talent pool, and importantly, as you're saying, Rocky, have a greater number that's then available to be drafted.
Well, that's my rant over.
No, it's a great chat though, and I think if you're going to compare anything to the US model, it's important to remember, Jack, you're an NBA fan. There's a lot of NBA teams that are struggling and been in the doldrums for a long time. Charlotte, 100%. Washington, their model doesn't mean that it works perfectly. So
no, and that's the thing. Like, we're going to end up, if we continue, in my opinion, on this path, it's going to end up like the F1, where you've got certain clubs that are competing for the premiership year on year, and teams that are just trying to get out of the bottom four.
The Premier League's even a better example. Yeah.
So, that's my opinion. Whether it's right or wrong, that's.
Do you think it's detrimental to be playing players when they're 18 to their development in the top league?
Well, this is the other thing with it is that, and Lynchy would attest to this as well. When he came through, when I came through, the expectation was that you played reserves footy until you were ready to play AFL footy. I think there's an expectation of these kids now when they come in that they just walk in and play senior footy right from the first bounce, and they get upset if they're not, when you still have to learn your craft. And I'm saying that we're seeing players that are playing footy that are not ready yet. And that's probably a little bit of a combination to that as well, that these teams, particularly down the bottom, they feel almost pressured that they've got to play their high-end talent because, if we don't play them, they're going to crack the shits and want to trade somewhere else.
And fans also want to see, we've drafted this guy in the top 10. What's he got?
Especially if you're a struggling club like the Bombers, you're not competing for finals. You do sort of have that investment in individual players. Yeah.
So,
well, that's why it'd be good to watch the twos play before the main match as well, so fans get to see the juniors. Rocky, this is probably more your time than mine. But a lot of kids at around your age, if they weren't drafted in their draft year, there's a lot they were chucking it in.
Yeah.
and given up. Whereas I think it's really important now, and I think that's where the state leagues play an important role. Clubs, and because there is a thin talent pool, clubs are more looking at where are the 23-year-old players that have played a bit of footy now, and they're draftable. So if you miss your first draft or second draft or do a Dane Zorko and miss about 4 drafts, you're still a chance to have a good footy career rather than, years ago it was like, I've missed my draft year, I'm done, I'll give it up.
Yeah, well, I think that's a bit with society as well. If it gets too hard, we just throw the towel in somewhat now. And
there's another tweet there, mate.
I was talking well, it is. We don't. No one wants to work hard. Everyone wants to just turn up, get their paycheck, and away they go.
Snowflakes.
Well, somewhat. Yeah. Yep.
Jeez, the tweet's doing great numbers, isn't it? Nearly 1,000 likes.
Is it 1,000 likes? Good work. And Jackie, you tossed up something there a couple of weeks ago. I'm just trying to work it. I reckon there's something in it. You mentioned the retention of your own talent in the NBA, the 20% discount on the salary cap.
Yep.
I reckon there's something in that. I know the AFL do like player movement. They like to see that. But I think especially with maybe the northern clubs or the non-Victorian clubs or a startup like Tazzy, there's something in that. So I'm trying to work out how we can get that into our list build rules. I'm not sure yet, but there's something in it.
Just go have a coffee with Swanee and you'll be fine, mate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Footy. There was footy on the weekend.
Yeah, let's have a pulse check because the Swans in your Port Adelaide, Rocky, bouncing back in a big way. Power. Any finals chance here after that pretty back and forth game with the Giants?
Well, Lynchy's seen it live. I watched it on TV. It wasn't the greatest spectacle going around, was it? I mean, Giants went a quarter without scoring, which, again, goes to my point about the lack of talent. But the Giants, I think, are the story out of that because I think we can accept that Port Adelaide are almost in that, they'll never admit it, a rebuild phase, and they've got a new coach coming in next year. And the Giants, though, I had them top 4 potentially winning the premiership this year with the talent they've got. But I think Lynchy made the call about 10 minutes in. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lynchy. I don't want to misquote you or whatnot here. But the Giants looked like they were disinterested. They looked like they had no zing about them. They were just there to almost collect their payslip. They didn't fire a shot. They were fumbly. They looked genuinely disinterested.
Yeah, I think I said they looked off. There was fumbly. They didn't have an urgency about them. The one player that really almost typifies this, and not to say they're disinterested, but just something's gone amiss is Jesse Hogan. I mean, Jesse's, I think, 31 goals so far, so he must be top 2 or 3 in the Coleman race. So you can't be too critical that he hasn't had a good year. But he's kicked a bag of 9 and 7 and maybe even a 4. He just looked like he was off. For a guy that was the most dominant forward in the game, could take pack marks, he looks like that's gone. And as tends to happen when you're playing poorly as a team, there's a bit of argument going on in the game. So, he looked really off. And
no marks from him that game.
No marks, yeah. Well, he's the number 1 contested marking player over the last couple of seasons, and clearly. And that is a luxury item when you got someone jumping into a pack and taking a mark. You can't expect that, but he was doing it. They look very off. Imagine, and Rocky, you're watching as well, if they didn't have Sam Taylor and Buckley, they would have got absolutely smashed. I mean, because Port Adelaide are just going, but they put that defence under enormous amount of pressure. Sam Taylor was clearly best on ground, but they would have got belted off their park. The run, the midfield, it's just, something's gone amiss, that's for sure.
They haven't got the Giants, that wave that they've had in the past, and Sam Taylor, he's an absolute star. Butters, again, for Port Adelaide, they need to get him signed ASAP because he's a star. And then you speak about the other game as well. The Swans, I mean, they're impressive, but they beat Richmond. So
weren't impressive in the first quarter. They're down by about 3 goals early.
Yeah, so the Tigers, I think, to their credit, they've probably exceeded expectations this year with some of their kids that have come in. They were impressive the week before, probably should have beaten the Giants, and then they start the game. And you're always, with younger teams, you're going to run out of steam at some point. So they've been good, but not sold on the Swans. I think the big winner out of the weekend so far, there's obviously one game to go, Freo, Collingwood and Melbourne. If Melbourne get up, that'd be massive for them. But I think the Adelaide Crows, that was a wet game. Brisbane were and dominated the last quarter. Brisbane probably should have won it in the end. But the Crows, to their credit, found a way to win that. They didn't take their opportunities early in the game, but hung on tough. Good Friday night game, tough, hard footy, and now they sit third on the ladder.
Hasn't Rochelle just taken that next step this year as well? Last year had a few quiet games, but the last 4 weeks has been incredible.
And everyone was critical of Matty Nix last year when they left him out after the Port Adelaide game. They said, "Oh, you'll leave, you'll do this," but that's a credit to Matty Nix for making the tough decision and his coaching staff by going, "No, Josh, this is what we stand for. You're going to have a week off," which ended up being the last game.
Yep.
And a credit to Rochelle for going away, accepting it on the chin. He accepted that he was out of the team. He's clearly had a big summer, point to prove, and he's come out and proved it so far.
It's the same with Jack Ginnivan, left out of the Easter Monday clash the last 2 weeks. He's been great.
Yeah. So I think it's a good reaction from the player and the coach and the footy club, what they stand for. So the Crows hopefully play finals for the first time since their disappointing grand final performance back in 2017.
And Jordan Dawson's played better games of footy as far as numbers are concerned. Well, kicked a goal and had about 18 touches. But what he does as a leader on the field and in the right times, talk about Jesse Hogan taking contested marks, that grab that he took late in the game to just seal the deal was amazing. You wouldn't imagine when he was playing at the Sydney Swans he would have been this quality midfielder or leader. And he's leading beautifully, and he's the main reason I think that this club's where they are.
They've done really well. And the other guy as well is a guy at Brisbane, Benny Keys, who was on the outer and pretty much finished. He's gone down there. He's one of best and fairest, and he was outstanding again on the weekend, played a defensive role on Zorko, hit the scoreboard as well. So he's done a really, really good job. But back to Thursday night as well, Ryan, your mob got the job done against the Dogs.
Yeah, no, it was good to see Mabs after I gave him a bit of a rev up. Tom Rockcliffe style when he did that a couple of weeks ago with Charlie Cameron. He comes out and kicks 4. As I said, Ginnivan was really good. Just a good all-around performance, and they started fast. That's sort of been the problem with Hawthorn over the last few weeks during this tough stretch. Encouraging signs. I don't know where we're really at with the Dogs right now. I think, did we overrate them?
Well, again, their percentage is strong, so they should be thereabouts, but they're on the same amount of wins as Essendon. And Essendon we all sit here and go, Essendon are just going, and the Dogs, we're all talking about how well they're going, but they're sitting on the same amount of points. So.
There's such a wide gap between their ceiling and their floor at the moment. That's the issue. It's whether or not they're getting up for every game.
Their balance is the big thing, I think, when they're all fit. So Treloar comes back into that team, and we speak about Bevo coaching the best he ever has. Well, he's not coaching the best when Liberatore is playing off a half-back flank.
No.
Liberatore is an inside midfielder that is the heartbeat of that soul, and we've seen it when Bontempelli wasn't there. He pretty much almost carried him over the line against Collingwood in that game. You've got to pick your players in their best positions, and maybe they've got too many talent for one position. Maybe they've got too many midfielders, but Liberatore is an inside midfielder. Pick your players in their position, in my opinion.
It's the same with Rory Lobb. He starts down back and then they push him forward because they've got no forward targets. I know they've had a lot of injuries.
Well, Darcy comes back in, which will straighten it out.
Massive. Yep.
Yeah, I think they've got to... That's been the frustrating thing with the Dogs for a number of years now is you see things and you're like, why aren't they playing their best positions to perform? And I think they lost that game a couple of years ago when it was English who took the kick in. Like, why is Ruckman taking a kick in?
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I know Beveridge probably doesn't have a say in that. He picks up the ball, but you've just got to play your role. Know your role, play your role, perform your role, I think is the famous quote.
No, good point. I think, But, they're heavily invested in the inside mids, that's for sure. And I think that's been pretty much a consistent theme for the last few years. Need a few more outsiders, and that's where Bailey Smith leaving. And that's why they wanted him to play on the wing, although he wanted to play a bit more inside. But he'd be handy on the wing at the moment.
I know we're probably about to move on, but... What's your take on that, Lynch? It came out yesterday. I don't know whether you've seen it or not, but the AFL head honchos went down and sat by the fire at Bailey Smith's house.
Right.
He's the face of the game, I'll tell you that much. If he's doing that, then he's hands down the face of the game.
So the AFL CEO's gone down there, their CEO, their coach, their footy manager, all go around to Bailey Smith's house. Have you ever heard of that? I'm sure it's probably happened before.
I'm sure, yeah, maybe it has. Although I could imagine the coach and the CEO going and sitting down, but I'm not sure about the AFL head honchos. But it's probably a good thing because I think we've discussed it over the last couple of weeks. He's basically the face of the AFL, and he's part of the whole package is he makes some comments post-game, and rest assured, if you're a boundary writer or a journalist post-game, you're going to Bailey Smith because you're going to get some gold and it's going to be trending throughout the week. So as much as you don't want to sort of polish that up too much and take that away, I think probably a reminder for the opportunity that lays ahead for him, and then balance that up with the responsibility to the club and the league, I think is a worthwhile thing. And if that's happened, I think it's probably a good move. And I'm sure they haven't just said straighten up, you got to start being a choir boy and doing absolutely all the right things, but there'll be a couple of things that'll be non-negotiables. And as long as he's clear on that, I'm sure it'll be tested, but I think that's a wise move.
Do you guys think we're entering an era where we're going to start to see more of these characters? Because Ginnivan was slammed for his goal celebration on Thursday night, and Bailey Smith's, in the same conversation there.
It's always the same, isn't it? We beg for characters in the game and then we chop them off at the head as soon as anyone steps out of line. So I think it's great for the game, and we spoke about it with Ross Lyon, in the senior coach. Like, when he says stuff, we love it. So I think we need more characters in the game, and I think we need to allow them to be able to showcase that. I think it's great for the game. It shows that there's people behind the athlete, the footballer. The footballer certainly doesn't define the individual. So I think it's important that we see those characters shine through.
You've got to allow the fans to react the way they want to react as well. You need the villains you need the heels for a good industry. Yeah. So, you love it when that character's in your team, and you love to barrack against them when they're not.
Yep. Yeah, I reckon we're seeing coaches and leaders in whether it's sport or industry sort of allow people to be who they are, sort of give them some reasonable guidelines. I mean, as we're saying with Bailey Smith, there's some things you can't do, but I think basically coaches are allowing people to express themselves. I reckon the important part, and we even used to see this with Acker, with some of the stuff that he used to do, that probably wasn't what most of us would do, but there's going to be the ups and downs like that. Ginnivan, if he's showing the ball to the crowd, and they'll love it and they'll support him, but that's going to come back and bite him at some stage, and someone's going to remind him of that. And I think it's really important as a team to support those guys. If you're going to celebrate with them and allow them to do that sort of stuff, there's going to be some hard times on the back of it. And so I think we just got to be careful as a society, not just say, do that, but when they fall, we're not there to support them. I think we've got to support those kids when they, when inevitably something does blow up.
If you guys were a teammate of Ginnivan's and he does that, how would you feel about it? Because I found Marbior Chol's comments after the game fascinating. He wasn't for it. Where would you be on that?
I think if you are, you've probably got to try and publicly support him as best you can and say, look, that's who he is and we love him for it. And if you do have a genuine issue with it, maybe have a word to him away from it, particularly if you're a leader of the club. But I think you've got to support, and I mean, characters are characters in the game, and we've got to encourage it, in my opinion. I think it's great. It gives us something to talk to, and I'm sure the next time the Dogs play him, they're going to have a target on his back. But we said that as well when Bailey Smith, he said about Ballarat, going to Ballarat and not playing in front of 400 people or whatever he said, but the Dogs didn't do anything. They didn't attack him or anything like that. So I think it's I think you got to support them, and I'm all for it. Again, as a teammate, as Lynchy said, and I think the big thing with Acker back in the day was, as long as it didn't affect the team performance or the individuals within the team, then it was go your hardest, do whatever you want. But I think when it started to impact the team's performance is when Brisbane started to have an issue with Acker.
Yeah, it's a fine line, isn't it?
And I think if you keep it on the field, your antics, then play on. Like, celebrate your goals. Goals should be celebrated no matter who kicks them. Like, as long as you're not coming out and being that persona off the field and kind of rubbing people the wrong way, then play on.
It's like you said, Rocky, it speaks to society, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. All these snowflakes, Lynchy.
Cancel them.
They're not tough like us back in the day. We love the Wiz. We love Kappa.
Jacko. Friend of the show, the Wiz. All right, boys, we'll take a quick break and then we'll come back and chat some more. You're listening to AFL Unpopular Opinions, boys. The bye week started a fortnight ago, and we've just been talking.
When's it finish?
Yeah, exactly. We've just been talking off the air, and they go right through to round 17, which feels very late in the year for teams to be having buys. And gee, some of the Sunday afternoon games, they don't kick off till about 3:20 p.m, and some of them are very flat to get up for. It's too late in the year for buys, A. And how do we fix this?
Well, you've got a public holiday in most of Australia today. So you've got footy on Sunday afternoon. You're sitting around waiting for it to start, and it's North Melbourne, West Coast. I mean, my solution and quick fix, this has sort of got out of hand quickly on us, because it used to be only sort of a 3-week period. I reckon it used to be a split round, and then it went to maybe 2 weeks and then 3 weeks, and now we're up to 5 weeks of buys. I think it needs to be a split. So have 5 games of footy one weekend, 4 games of footy the next weekend. So 8 teams have the bye the first weekend, 10 teams have the bye the second week, and then we're back into it. It just feels disjointed, and your team, you don't know what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, totally agree.
But what they had there for a few years was everyone had the weekend off except for Sydney and Collingwood. Remember, they used to play that game out at the Olympic Stadium, so that was the only game for the round. I agree, probably 4 and 5, and I think over the course of those 2 bye weekends, stay away from Saturday Arvo and have a real theme for country rounds and country leagues, so that you can get back and see your old country team and get some decent crowds out to the local games. But yes, so basically split it in half and do it over 2 weeks.
It just feels disjointed at the moment for a couple of weeks. So no games in Queensland this weekend. A couple of weeks ago it was the same thing, no games in Queensland. It just feels like it's a bit all over the shop, and make it shorter and sharper. We've got the even team, so I would just do it over a split.
Does it give a team an unfair advantage if they're getting a bye later on or earlier on type thing? They freshen up?
Well, I think we see, because everyone gets a bye early, whether it's you don't play the first week or then you have the second, third. But even that was a bit confusing as well, because you had teams that weren't playing, were playing, teams that have played 7 games, some that have played 5. It was all over.
You had Alfred as well.
Yeah. So
I think this is opening round's fault. I don't want to throw that spanner in the works, but this is a direct result of that.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it needs to be a short, quick hit of buys instead of... and. It goes to everything within the industry as well, I think. Like, you either have they'll never do it again, but you can have a complete weekend off and play your inter-league games around the country league. So Ovens and Murray versus Golden Valley in Victoria, or those types, have a complete shutdown, give everyone in the industry a week off. Lynchy's jetted over to New Zealand now, so he needs a bit of time off, but it gives everyone a chance to reset and hit the season, back end of the season running.
I feel like we just had a lot of footy over the last 6 weeks too, because you got the Easter Monday games, Anzac Day, King's birthday today. There's a lot of these public holiday games. I think the season is a little bit too long. We did speak about this a couple of weeks ago, but 24 rounds, it's a marathon sometimes.
Do you just use the mid-season trade period as a weekend?
Yeah.
Of where you just cover that more?
Well, that's the other thing. So you talk about the mid-season draft. I would introduce a mid-season trade. So have a complete shutdown for guys that are on the fringe that aren't playing. So like a Frost or someone at Hawthorn who knows he's about 5th in line now as a key defender post. Or your club might need a ruckman. Have a complete shutdown. Allow your teams to go out and go, all right, who are we going to potentially trade or put on a loan? I think trade. I think that would certainly be interesting for the public. If you had that on a Saturday afternoon, Saturday night in a bye week, and you've got teammates that, and you would have to, clubs would obviously have to agree to it. You're not going to be able to pick someone out that's in the best 22 or something like that. I think you could have a mid-season trade.
It's a very American thing of you to say.
Well, it is, and we're going that way.
You and your American ideas,
we're going that way anyway. Well, you see the NRL do it. Yeah. They still have a trade window open. I think
it's all year round. You can do what you want.
Yeah, all you got to do is just say that you hate the coach and you can't coach, and you find a way to a different club. But I think that fixes it all then, because then we have one weekend off. We know that we have it off, and we know that potentially we're going to have for an Essendon, they've got heaps of key backs down. They can go to the market and find someone from a ready-made. He's on an AFL list. He's been developed, and you can still pick someone out of the VFL or the state leagues if you want. But it's probably a good fix for the bye week. Everyone gets a weekend off. You may end up with a new club jumper though.
You like that, Lynchy?
Yeah, don't mind it. Just instantly was thinking it'd probably cost some ruckman some list spots, because you're probably not going to go overboard with having ruckman on your list if you got the opportunity to trade from another club halfway through the year maybe. But yeah, I think for some clubs it would be a massive asset. So yeah, I don't mind it. We do tend to trend towards the American style. So yeah, I think the AFL like to get it in. I think the hesitancy is coming from more the non-Victorian clubs. I think they feel that it's a lot easier to move someone out of a Melbourne club into another Melbourne club, and it would be harder for them to move interstate. But yeah, something I'm sure is going to come in once the Players Association tick off on it.
We are recording this on a Monday, so we've got the big freeze coming up this afternoon. Any of you boys had an invite for that over the years?
I did it in COVID.
You did?
Yeah, I dressed up as Koshi and he didn't speak to me for about 8 weeks. So
Did you go the bald cap and everything?
I went bald cap and a massive nose and glasses, and I don't think he was too impressed. But yeah, that was
actually pretty good.
in a bucket. So yeah, took the mickey out of the chairman, which probably in hindsight you shouldn't do, and probably wouldn't do it again. But nah.
How many years did you last after that?
I think I got the tap on the shoulder. Nah, not long after. All seriousness, I think he played it up. I think he's seen it for what it was. It's a great cause, and I think the money that's been generated from it, and Neil Danaher, I mean, how he's survived for so long and done an outstanding job. Yeah. It's an illness that normally gets people really, really quickly. So his ability to fight and it's been an incredible journey for him, and I think it's a great cause that the AFL have got behind.
Absolutely, well said.
And it's an increasing issue from what we hear with, I think Neil Danaher spoke about when he first contracted the disease, it impacted 1 in 500 people. Now it's 1 in 200 people, which is horrific to hear, and to hear that there's still not a cure. So the work that he's doing is incredible. You'd like to think you'd be as brave as Neil in this in the same situation, but probably most of us wouldn't be able to do what he's been able to do, and his family. I mean, Beck, we see her fly the flag now that Neil can't get around as much, but Beck Danaher and the whole family have been incredible.
And I think it's a credit to the whole AFL, because we've seen it in Adelaide on Friday night. Most of the venues that do something and raise awareness and money for the day, and obviously the big one is today, and everyone goes down the slide. But it's a great event, and it's a great thing that the AFL community's got behind.
Have to work out a way to get you boys at the Gabba to do it next year. Sure, Neds can fund that.
I missed the invite. I was supposed to be on the Gold Coast last week, but I think I've been able to avoid it for a few valid reasons. I think I'm in next year.
Well, I think the Gabba, they had a few last year that did it.
Adam Reynolds did a few of them.
Yeah. It's hard for Lynchy to go down the slide from New Zealand, though.
True.
No, we'll just sneak over.
It might be a bit chillier over there, though.
What's on in New Zealand?
Cold. Sorry, nothing.
What is, before we let you go?
Yeah, give us the itinerary.
Nothing. No, it was quite a journey to get here too. I left Canberra, which was cold, and drove to Sydney straight away to catch a flight back to Brisbane to catch my flight over to New Zealand. So no, just a quiet few days. Might just test out a couple of the wineries, and that's about it.
You grabbing a beer with any friends of the pod?
No, Dylan. I was trying to catch up with Dylan, but
hasn't worked out.
No, we didn't cross paths. So
What about Lynchy saying it's a bit of a journey to get over there and whatnot? It's an easy journey when you're flying 1A.
I know.
1A, 1C.
And your private jet.
They've got the private limo from Canberra to Sydney.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, it's a tough gig, isn't it?
Surprised he didn't get the chopper. He's probably going on the chopper to the wineries over in New Zealand.
No, you're speaking about the wrong Brisbane Lions ex-player. There's plenty of them doing all right, not me.
That might do us for this week, fellas. Good show. We'll chat next week.
Good on you, gents.
Very good.
Cheers, boys.
All right, thanks, fellas.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website